But supposing you do the physical exercise, eating, drinking, exercising, the bare maintenance of the body with a spiritual attitude. That's what should be. All activities should be done as a kind of spiritual offering anyway, as a spiritual activity. And maintaining the body is a very basic thing. You can't maintain it, so the most basic thing, of course, is food. The spiritual life begins with food and eating. And I was explaining that in the yogic system, where you have a series of chakras, that is, levels of consciousness, but they reflect in a physical way. Because what we're told is that, in the Taittiriya Upanishad, that all these various bodies, physical body, that is a gross body, pranic body, body from energy, mental body, intellect, these are all the same shape. They're more subtle, that's all. But they're the same basic vortex, caught in the same basic vortex, only expressing in degrees of subtlety and coarseness. So you'd expect that if there's a level of consciousness somewhere, then it would reflect. And yogic vision found that there are these series of levels of consciousness that can be represented up the spine, can be represented also up a mountain. You have a basic level, and so it goes on. So the most basic level is food. That's the most basic biological need that we have. That is sustaining the life that we have. Every organism, even a bacteria, will have an urge to take in nutrients. Bacteria, there's certain bacteria whose environment is essentially iron salts, iron and sulfur salts. That bacteria knows how to take that, maintain its health, reproduce every 20 seconds. Every 20 minutes. Every 20 minutes, a whole population gets reproduced. And knows what to throw off in exactly the right measure, knows how to convert those minerals into, through electrochemical activity, into energy. The ATP, ADP process happens even in a single cell organism. So we know how to eat, we know where to get food, we know how to convert it, we know how to throw off what is wasted. It's a kind of factory. Every cell is a kind of factory. How to keep this factory in good condition? So there was a man called Alexis Carrel, the Nobel Prize winner. He took the cells of a chicken's heart. Chicken normally survives maybe a few years, unless it's eaten before then. And he sustained them for 10 years. Why 10 years? Well, he could have sustained them for 100 years. But after 10 years, he proved his point. Experiment concluded. What did he do? In test tube laboratory conditions, he fed in to these cells exactly the right amount of calculated nutrients required to keep them, and extracted exactly the right amount of waste products from them. In this way, he kept the cells healthy and speculated even the human cells will live indefinitely if the right proportion of nutrients comes in, no wastage, and the right waste products go out. There's the definition of health. You keep the health of the body sustained by feeding in exactly the right proportion. But what happens for human organisms, those that are not in natural conditions? Natural conditions means they respond to their environment in a non-artificial way. Animals, for example, in Africa, wild animals in Africa, or organisms at the very basic level, and they're sustained. We got the most successful creature on the planet is a crocodile. They live for a very long period of time. They know how to survive. It's not just the food. Inbuilt in them is a survival mechanism. So the survival depends on food. It also depends on the capacity to reproduce. So Darwin picked up on this, Charles Darwin, and said there seems to be a natural selection going in. Artificial selection, we know. Artificial selection is based on not only taking the best and then reproducing the best in a series so that some genetic engineering goes on, but also by also reproducing it, knowing how it reproduces in the face of possible opposition, in the face of difficulties. So, being so sophisticated and wonderful creatures, we decided that we would also eat. We decided that we would make an art of it. We decided that we'd be gourmets and gourmands, and we would eat in excess. And also, domesticated animals for husbandry will also be overfed and eaten. You take, for example, the pig, domesticated from a boar, engineered through artificial selection, and then fed so that it is such a gross distortion of what we find in nature, hardly can move. The French delicacy of liver pâté is because geese are force-fed so that the liver becomes diseased. And that diseased liver we take and we eat. And we lick our lips and say, what a wonderful and expensive delicacy this is. There's a man called Louis Kuhn, German man, who lived the first, maybe, certainly he was around in the 1930s. He writes some wonderful and exquisite books, old books. One is called The Art of Facial Expression. The other one is called what is the other one called? I forget what the other one is called. It'll come to me shortly. But what he says there is something very old-fashioned, but very applicable today and very yogic in its content. That we can easily see from a person's head and neck, from the distortions there, what toxic material is in the body. In other words, what food went out and what waste product remained. It used to be that in the 19th century, the epitome of British health was John Bull. With a pot belly and robust, was seen to be the epitome of health. But nowadays, of course, we know that's very different. That would be the epitome of a heart attack. That would be the very candidate that would be in the hospital, getting diabetes, suffering from all kinds of cardiovascular problems, and probably, because of a lowered immune system, very open to the COVID virus today. So the ancient yogis understood this. They had a series of what we call kriyas, along with the basic discipline of controlling food. So coming back to my original point, the first discipline in spiritual practice, tapasya, controlling the senses, lies in controlling the mouth, controlling what you eat. Controlling what you eat, controlling what you drink, not only in quality, but also quantity. And then leaving it completely, because the Lord is there as Vaishvara, digesting your food. Having faith and confidence in that, and re-registering the body as God's housing, and the mind as God's sitting room, we have nothing more to do except cleaning. We don't have to worry about health, doctors, or anything like that. Of course, a doctor will have a very different view. A doctor will have a certain prayer. Make people fall sick, otherwise he has no business. Whereas the other person on the other side will say, may I not go to the doctor? So the poor Lord sitting in heaven has one thing going in here, another thing going here. You can humorously picture it that way. But both of these don't understand a fundamental principle, that God sits in every cell of the body. And when every thought is activated positively, every cell of the body vibrates with it. Then just maintenance, there's nothing that will move the lymph round. The lymphatic system is purely and simply regulated by bending and twisting. The blood can be circulated by a pumping heart, but the lymphatic system has to be moved. And we can only do this through yoga exercise. A system of exercises that combine regulated breath so that no energy or minimum energy gets expended with maximum benefit. Something is moved, muscles are moved, skeleton is moved, but there's no vigorous movement that expends the energy. The breathing technique that accompanies it tells us that we're not moving the body violently, we are stretching. And in stretching this, we are expressing the health that we have. We're not trying to gain anything. This is true in all activities. As soon as you shift your position to say, I'm not competing, I'm not gaining anything, I'm expressing something, the whole of your mind and body shifts and changes. So for this reason, I teach yoga teachers, because yoga is such a popular thing today. But do they have this kind of philosophy behind it? Do they have this spiritual attitude behind it? I want to make sure that yoga teachers have this outlook. And it starts with them not thinking that they will help anybody or assist anybody, but that they will help, they will get people to express the health they already have. And their point of view is either that God sits in all of these people, or in the Vedantic language, the self is there within, all beings within the self being within all beings, or that there's a flowing thing that is also called self, that instead of having an I, ego, I re-register it. Instead of that, I put the royal Lord of the universe in there and see that moving through all hands and legs. So I tell people, when I first conducted yoga classes as a monk, I had some difficulty because most of the participants are all females. How to manage the situation? I discovered, these are all just the Lord's hands and feet and arms and legs, that's all. He flowing through all of this. And that removed immediately any kind of paradox. So we do the yoga exercise to express the health we have as a kind of movement of prayer and to make sure that the body is purified. All activities anyway, what is called karma yoga, has only one thing in view, and that is purifying the mind, nothing else. All yogas are there designed to purify the mind. So what we eat is important, but not as important as understanding the Lord digests your food without our interference. When we eat something, we don't follow it up with a spoon and stir the contents of the stomach. We leave it there, knowing that the Lord is digesting everything, and the only job we have is cleaning. As soon as you clean the body through these various kriyas or health activities or exercise or the quality of food or what have you, or not eating too much food, just what the body requires. According to the yogi, your two hands is stretched out, your two palms like that represent the volumetric capacity of the stomach. And according to the yogis, half of that is food. The other half is 1/4 water, 1/4 air. So the amount of food that you're eating is equivalent to 1 palm worth. You bear in mind that when the food is digested, all the pockets of air get crunched up. So there's a smooth slurry, if you will. So you can think about that and see, all right, but you know yourself, whether the stomach is over full or not. And today, people use eating as an emotional cover. When people find that they require some kind of compensation in a sorrowful condition, they tend to resort to eating. And they teach their children the same thing. So a reward for a child is something either saline, like potato crisps, or it's ultra sweet, forms a lot of mucus, called ice cream, or something sweet, which contains a lot of sugar. Both of these are toxic poison to the body. And the parent, unknowingly, is with great love and care, feeding toxic poison to their children and allowing an obesity problem very often as time goes on. So this is relevant if we want to keep ourselves healthy. I told this at the beginning of the COVID virus. Those people who have a strong immune system, they won't get it. Even if they get it, the body knows what to do with it. You just have to make sure that the blood is free to do its job. The blood knows exactly what to cure. So Louis Kuhn, I think his second book is called The Natural Way or something like that. Anyway, so Louis Kuhn, a German man, he said if you want to diagnose the problem, disease, don't look for a virus, don't look for a bacteria. Look for the toxic material that accumulated around the head and the neck. And when you find distortions, know that without air and sunshine, toxic material fermenting in the body has a tendency to rise. And when it rises, it finds its distortions in the head and the neck. So that if you find somebody, if you look at a profile of somebody and take the lobe of the ear and draw a sweeping line down the jaw, that's how it should be. But if you look on the profile and see that the line is behind the ear in some way, that is, a double chin is there, then know that person has an abundance of morbid matter in the body, which tends to be in the front, and that will always be accompanied by a pot belly. Know that if there's a receding hairline or a bulging skull, that the toxic material has gotten there and is stretching the skin there. Know that if you look at the profile of somebody's neck, instead of finding a sweeping line around the skull, that you find a straight line. Know that they have this encumbrance at the back of the body. And know that if you look at a person's face head on, and one shoulder, or you find one side of the head may be a little bit distorted, or the neck is distorted, then it's an indication that there is encumbrance, that is toxic material, on one side of the body or the other. And the organs that will be affected will be on that side of the body. So for example, we know that the heart is slightly off center in the body. Where that distortion is, that will be where the disease will be. The liver is placed in another quarter, and so it goes on. The stomach bulges to one side. So you find that those people who have a distortion in the neck and the head will be inclined toward a difficulty on that side of the body. And where does the difficulty start? It starts during the 9 months of pregnancy. Because if everything was good then, and following the pattern of wild animals, there would be no issue. There would be no childhood diseases, such as measles and those kinds of things, smallpox, all of these things that are with children. Why is it there? It's there because the body, being inherently resistant, the child will deal with it through febrile diseases, that is fever. Fever is the one way. And fever will enable the largest skin of the body, namely the sweat pores, the skin, to expand and do their job. Without that, then we have a doomsday scenario for children. And adults can very, very seldom bear that kind of disease. So it's the body's way of trying to get this toxic material to escape. It's like if you have at the bottom of your garden some kind of cesspool or something, some kind of swamp, then DDT won't do it, won't remove mosquitoes from your swamp. You have to drain the swamp completely. Then no mosquitoes will come. You take the breeding ground away, you don't have any difficulty. So it used to be that doctors would say there's something wrong in the blood. So bloodletting was the thing in the Western culture. Let's do some bloodletting. And it may be in the stool. So let's do something there. Now, in a way, they had the right idea, but people died more at the hands of those doctors than anything else. The great composer Beethoven, his end was really at the hands of doctors, just as an example. Then as inoculums developed and so on, and as germs were more understood, the idea was it's all due to good germs, bacteria. But that wouldn't be correct either. It's due to the breeding ground that attracts the bacteria. But basic hygiene has to be there. Obviously, water has to be in good condition and so on. These are external factors that have to be attended to, absolutely no doubt. And then when they put the germs away and said, okay, we have antibiotics for that, then the next fad was to say, Watson and Crick just discovered this DNA structure. It's all genetic. Everything is genetic. All your problems, there's still an overlap of that. But soon they'll discover, no matter what drugs you give, no matter what genetically modified drugs are given, no matter what even epigenetic drugs are given, although that would be better than standard drugs, the answer really lies in your behavior. The answer lies in you making the body strong, bringing it back to its original pristine condition, as God intended. So we do that through right thinking, because stress is the primary cause of disease. Correct your thought, make sure every cell of the body vibrates well with it. Secondly, make sure that you're eating not as a result of compensating for poor thought or negative thought or pessimism, or a sense of deservability, but eating the right food at the right time. Now, the Bhagavad Gita gives us a very sketchy idea of what this food is, sattvic food. It doesn't say that this food will make you pure. It doesn't say that this pure food will make you egoistically active. It doesn't say that this food will make you lazy. But I'm saying that's the implication. Because if you like that food, then by implication and inference, surely that food will produce the same results because you like it. So if you take a look at what are those kinds of foods, you do have, in fact, a good guideline as to what you should eat. But otherwise, a peacock will produce all its fine feathers, and you and I can't do it. And if you look for the solution to its display in its diet, you'll be disappointed. Because it just eats any old scrap, any grains here and there it eats. Because the power of digestion is able to absorb what it wants, reject what it doesn't. And we all have that same capacity, so we don't get so much of a headache over diet. Then thirdly, exercise is required. We have to move the lymph around. There's nothing else that would do it. And because most of us spend our life in a sedentary position, we have to supplement that with cardiovascular activity, walking, or cycling, or swimming, or any of these kinds of exercise would be necessary. So, and then of course, just to make sure that our environment is good. For example, if you decide to live under electricity pylons, then expect that you'll be prone to maybe carcinogen effects. In terms of what to eat, there are only a few basic rules. We avoid eating rocks. So what rocks are we typically eating? Something called sodium chloride, or what is geologically called halite. It's a mineral. It's the only rock that we decide that is tasty and we want to eat it. So we don't leave that out. And then this sugar which is there. There are natural sugars in fruit. There's fructose in there. It's absolutely enough. So we don't have to take refined foods which have no meaning for the body and are pure wastage. So in summary, this is basically what it is.
About the fruits and the essence of the fruits, right? Wherein we shouldn't have any artificial sugar, but we should have natural fruits.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Correct.
So Swamiji, I wanted to ask you for holistic development of ourselves. So in order to progress spiritually, and I read somewhere that you cannot meditate on anything if you fast. And some people have told me that fasting is very important. It makes you spiritually clean. So I have two questions for you, Swamiji, if you don't mind. The first question is, to develop holistically, which food would you suggest as the most important for the body?
Okay.
And number two is fasting that important and that pure that we must fast in order to attain like spiritual like goodness or something like that?
Okay, so first question is, everybody is constitutionally different. So I can't recommend what food suits you. You have to find that out yourself.
Right.
The only thing is that it should be nutritious and it should be in sufficient quantity and not exceed that. But some basic rules need to be there. Salt and sugar are poison. Leave it off.
Okay.
Secondly, the most natural thing to eat will be foods that appeal to all the sense organs. Our ancestors must have figured out that something that is good to sight, to touch, to taste, to smell is good to eat.
Right. Yeah.
The thing that most falls in this category is fruit. If you ask me what I would do, left to myself,
yeah,
I would only eat fruit.
Okay. Okay, only fruits. Yeah, that's actually difficult to maintain, but yeah, we can do it.
But that's me. It's not you.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And the second thing about fasting.
So the other thing is that we should not mix acidic fruits with carbohydrates.
Okay. Acidic fruits with carbohydrates.
And we should not mix sweet fruits with proteins. And we should not mix proteins with carbohydrates.
Okay. No proteins with carbohydrates. Okay, I get that. Yeah, right.
That would be very difficult in an Indian diet.
Yes, very true. Yes, Swamiji, I agree with you. Yes.
So therefore we do what we can. Do I follow those rules? Currently, no. Because I'm dependent on food that comes.
Yes.
So what is my fallback position? My fallback position is absolute confidence and faith that the Lord who digests my food knows exactly what he's doing.
Correct, Swamiji. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Secondly, with regard to fasting.
Yes.
There are two spiritual things we can do. Fasting and feasting.
Okay. Okay. Uh-huh.
You see, it's not whether you don't have food or do have food.
Mm.
It's what is your state of mind when you eat.
Right.
So I fasted in my youth, and I created ulceritis in me.
Yes. Yes, Swamiji. Yes, that happens a lot, Swamiji. That is why I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you, like,
Yeah.
because
So as a result, I don't do it.
yeah. No, Swamiji, because, sorry, but I wanted to say that every time before I eat anything, like, I say this prayer, wherein in Bhagavad Gita it is said that Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, Aham Vaishwa Naro Bhutva, Praninam Deham Ashritaha, Pana Pana Samayuktaha, Pachamyannam Chaturvidam.
Mm.
So, God, yeah,
Yes, what our tradition says is that inside there's a fire. So brahmapanam, brahmahavi, brahmagnam,
Brahma Brahmana,
brahmanahutam,
yes,
like
Brahma
that. Yeah.
Brahma Karma
So
Samadhi.
every activity that you do, including the what is equivalent to our
Yes,
yajna or havan, is
yes,
the putting the food in. Digestive food is there, and the Lord is that digestive fire.
correct. Yes, yes, Swamiji. Yes,
Yeah. So
yes,
that means if you follow that, there's
yes,
no possibility of exceeding the quantity of food.
correct.
And every morsel of food will have the quality of sacred food, prasad.
Yes, yes, Swamiji. Mm.
So, but what that means really is that you'll linger over the taste. You will enjoy the taste because it's God's gift. God
Yes,
in this form comes to you, and you'll enjoy the taste.
yes. So, Swamiji, what do you suggest? Is fasting compulsory to attain
Oh,
spiritual bliss?
fasting. There's no connection between fasting and spiritual activity.
Because
On what?
people are telling me that on, Vaikuntha Ekadashi or this Ekadashi, that Ekadashi, you should fast, you will get goodness and all that. So, I'm just confused, Swamiji.
No, if you fast on those days
Yeah.
with a thought dedicated to God, then that's good.
Oh, okay.
But if you are fasting and thinking that it is a terrible thing and you wish there would be food coming soon,
Okay.
then this is not at all spiritual.
Yes, Swamiji. Yes, I just wanted to clarify that, Swamiji. Yeah, because I was afraid that if I don't do fast, then I'm doing a sin on that or something.
So now all fasting done as a form of tapasya, that is strengthening the will. If whatever you're doing strengthens your will and resolve, then that is useful in spiritual life. But fasting without any science behind it, or any reasoning behind it, or just because everybody says Ekadashi, you should fast. If something that has no reason or logic behind it is called superstition.
Yes, Swamiji. Yes.
Okay. Is there a benefit? Yes, there's a benefit. But there are some people who cannot fast.
Yes.
And some people, for me personally, I can go out without food for many days.
Oh my God.
It doesn't affect me. I don't hanker for food. When I was in Blessington Street, in fact, since I came to Ireland in 2006, I only ate whatever was given. Sometimes nothing was given.
Right.
Was I unhappy about that? No, it's all God's will. So I didn't worry very much about it. See?
Right, Swamiji.
Now, here's the thing. For most people today in a first world country, and other countries too, are not healthy.
Right.
Not healthy means they have an excess of waste matter within their body. We were just discussing this earlier.
Right.
So what that means is that if you fast for 5 days, you will still pass stool.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is an indication that there is a lot of... so that indicates that we are eating far too much. We're having a wrong attitude toward food. And for various reasons, we have toxic material in the human body,
Mm.
which itself is the full breeding ground for disease.
Correct. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the way we judge it, and I'll reiterate what I said before, the way we judge it, and the way I teach the yoga teachers is when you make an assessment, through a questionnaire, what difficulties do you have here and there, and so on and so forth, you will also examine the head and the neck, because fermented material will exhibit there. And if you find distortions there, you know a person is diseased. Most
Right.
people that you see today are diseased.
Right.
If you have a double chin or pot belly or any of these things, or if you're a waist, has some extra texture to it, then you are internally diseased.
Right, Swami.
And that will have to be removed.
Right, Swami.
So the way I remove it, or get people to remove it, is when people come to me in crisis, I put them on a program which includes diet, includes exercise, but it also includes the standard yoga kriyas, and also some items from naturopathy to do with opening up the pores of the skin. So through steam baths and through cold packs.
Right. Yeah. Those are effective. Yes, Swami. I've heard of them. Yes, Swami.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So you know, these are maintenance things. These are we have, most people have gotten themselves into a situation where it's beyond the maintenance. These things are just normal maintenance things.
Yes,
But when you've gone beyond the maintenance things and you have to have a curative system, then you have to introduce these emergency measures. And then thereafter, you have to maintain the body through routine practices.
Yes, Swami. Yes, I get that.
All right.